today's summary, we're going to be going through and creating a whole Courier trial sequence. Now, you don't need to worry about this right now. We're going to go back and touch on this right at the end so that everyone can get a summary of what we just did. But I wanted to put it up here. It's something that people have asked for in the past. Can we just get a summary of everything you just created? This may seem a little intimidating, but it's really not. So let's go over exactly what we're going to do today. So I'm going to pull up our Workflow Wednesday app. Now, everyone should still be seeing my screen. I believe I just put Quickbase up there, right, Justin? Can I get a confirmation on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So for those of you who have come and attended in the past, you may see a familiar screen. This is our Workflow Wednesday application, which is what we're doing today. Today is our Workflow Wednesday. And we have a very, very simple record here. Now I'm going to hit refresh and we're going to see what's going on here, but I'm going to go through kind of exactly what you're going to be doing on this call. So today, what we have for you is what we actually use ourselves, and we've set up a couple times for clients, is something called a trial sequence. Now, I'll be honest with you, it does not need to be for a trial. That's just the most convenient way to explain it. This can be an email sequence in general for any topic that you would like to send. So the add-ons that, well, the only add-on that's really necessary to use in this is QB Courier. We're going to also tag in Exact Forms Plus because Exact Forms Plus is awesome and we try to include it in all of our demos. But what we'll be doing is we're going to be creating a quote and then sending it out during a trial sequence to the individual. And that's going to be an automatic sequence. So you don't have to remember to say, hey, maybe I want to send them a quote, or maybe I need to update them on what's going on. This is going to be something that's going to send 5 different emails on a preset sequence where it's hands off. And that can be used in many different ways. But again, the example here is just a trial sequence because that's what we use. So I'm just going to put the only really necessary field in here is my email. All the rest of these, of course, as you all know, is totally up to you. Every Quickbase application is different. The information you want to include in your emails may be different, or just the information you're ingesting, totally different for everyone. So no worries there. But we're just going to put my email in. We're going to hit save. And of course, today, we're not going to be going through how to make an Exact Forms Plus document. And Shally, I'm not sure if you're here. This generate EFP document, this is something we've done in a previous office hours session. So we're not going to re-review that. Justin might have the link for you all. Here's Shally maybe rumbling in the background. But either way, this is something that we've done in the past. So we're not going to go through creating this Exact Forms Plus document today. But just for those, it is on YouTube, and you can go through and see exactly what we're creating here at any point. So let's just see what gets made here. Something very, very simple. A simple quote. You can see I didn't fill out any of this information, so nothing's getting included here. That's simply because there's no information on the record. Fun fact, that's one of the most common support tickets we get. Why was information not shown on my Exact Forms Plus document? Well, your information was blank. So please keep that in mind. So anyway, we have our quote there, and we'll just hit refresh. You see that we have this quote they created. Now, let me just go through exactly what we need to make this happen. So we have a couple fields here, and I had those listed, but all these fields we're going to want to create. None of these are going to be included, and thank you, Justin, for sending that, but none of these fields are going to be created already. So let's go through the really important ones first. We're going to go trial message to be sent and trial courier to use. And one thing that I also noticed, and Shally pinged me already, I forgot, we also have a status field. So these are the things that we want to have that are going to kick this off. So first off, I'm going to change that trial to trial quote, that status to trial quote. But let's at the same time, let's go through this and see why this just happened. So one of my favorite things about Quickbase is when you make a change and formula fields are changed based off of a set of conditions, you see it in yellow when you're in edit mode. I love that. I think it's a great way for people to see that an action is being taken. So let's see why these actions are being taken. So I'm going to open in a new tab the trial message to be sent, and then I'm going to open in a new tab trial courier config to use as well. I'm going to open two new tabs, so stay with me. So the first one we're going to do is trial message to be sent. Now, this is a formula numeric field. So let's open this up a little bit, and maybe let's scroll in so you guys can all see. So like I was just saying, the condition here is if the field status, and again, this is your field, your preference, but we're just going to use status because that's very generic. If status is equal to trial quote, and you could have, many different statuses, won, lost, trial quote, COVID quote, whatever it might be, you can have that all set up. And then you're going to say, what we want to do is if that is true, then we want to have all of these conditions to follow. So if the fifth email sent date is not blank, show 6. Fourth, show 5. Third, show 4. Second, show 3. First, show 2. If not, 1. So right now, because of everything I just said, it's showing 1 because the first email sent date is blank, second is blank, third is blank, fourth is blank, and of course, fifth is blank. So because all of those are blank and trial quote is true, we're showing 1. So that's what we're doing here. And you guys can copy that formula basically word for word. And that's going to be a real indicator in this process. And the reason why we're using that is because this is being directly fed into trial courier config to use. And now this is another formula field. So this one was formula numeric. And now we're just going to go. And like I said, I opened this up in a new tab. So this is trial courier config to use. We're going to open this one up now as well. So now we have a case field where it's saying trial message to be sent, which is the one we were just looking at. And we're saying if that value comes back as 1, which we just showed, if this comes back at 1, use, and we probably don't note this here, use configuration 5139. That's the first courier configuration. I'm going to show you guys that in a minute as well. If it's 2, use 5140, 3, 5141, 4, 5142, 5, 5143. Now, for those of you who are confused by those numbers in the thousands, that is the courier configuration ID on JuiceN. So I'm going to open that up in a second, but that's your courier configuration ID. So some of you who may have been using Courier for years and years, your configurations could be in the thousands and the 2000s, 3000s, 4000s, etc. We're up into the 5000s now. So that's what that's going to look like. And then, of course, at the bottom, we have a little note here. 0 appears when trial sequence is not activated. So you can actually see on that very first time when I took this off, it shows a 0, that trial sequence is not activated. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that back, and I'm going to hit save. So realistically, I think I need to check my email notification. So for those of you who have joined us in the past or may have used Courier in the past, you know that there needs to be a trigger sometimes on the triggered emails. So I'm just going to hit refresh, and there's my first email sent date. I heard my ding on there. I know I got an email. So by changing the status to trial quote, and let's check the conditions, but I believe EFP date is not equal to blank. So here's my email notification. And for those of you who might have questions on this, again, Justin might be able to throw it in the chat. We did a whole 101 of Courier where you can learn exactly what's going on here. But this is a native email notification through Quickbase. I'm emailing myself just because I want to know that a copy went out. But I'm also emailing our processor, which is qbcourier@courier.quickbasetools.com. This can be found on our help site. This can be found on YouTube. So you can always get that if you miss it here. But then I have a notification when, which is really my condition. So when a quote is modified and status is changed, and status is equal to the value trial quote. So by having that, it kicks off this to be sent. And remember, I said 5139 for 1. So we have this whole string, which again can be found on our help site or previous videos, where you're going to have your courier ID. So this is your queue number with us. It's a client number. Yours may be in the 2000s and the 1000s. It depends on when you came on board with us. Then it's saying the record ID. So we're doing it for this quote record. And then type is equal to courier. Now, again, you can find that online, but that's what we're sending out to our processor. And as that gets sent out, it's going to go to the email address on this record. And I'm going to show you the Courier configuration in just a moment. Now, let me see. I do have the email up. So we got this email. Great. I see you started the trial. That's great. If you feel like you need some help, here's a Calendly link. And of course, we have that attachment, that generated quote included. We have a safe attachment scan. That's a security scan. That's going to scan in just a moment. But that's going to come in and you're going to then see the quote as well. So this is the email that was sent just as the first sequence. And now for those of you who are watching along, you will see that second email to be sent date is 10/20. So let's see what's going on here. Now this is the formula date field, and this may look confusing, but just take a moment, stay with me here, because I think you guys will all get this. We're basically saying we're setting a variable date, next date, and we're saying to date, the first sent date. So let's go back and let's close this out for a second. Of course, I lost my spot. Does anyone else not like when you hit exit that sometimes it just brings you back? Let's go back to where we were. So we have our first sent date field plus 2 days. And now that is up to you. So we have plus 2 days. Maybe you want it to be plus 7 days because you want it to be a week before you send something else out to them. Maybe you want it to be 1 day. That is totally up to you. That is preference. We're showing 2 days here. Totally fine. Now you may see delay 2. Now that's just in the name of the field. I'm going to show that in just a moment, but don't worry about that. We're going to cover that in a second. So we have first sent date plus 2 days plus delay 2. Now the delay 2 is pretty important. It makes this a little variable, dynamic. We're going to show that in a second. Then we have another variable here, variable number, DAO, and this is day of the week, DAO, and this is next day. So we have just then the case field at the bottom, which is saying if it's 0, then plus 1 day, and if it's 6, then plus 2 days. We're doing this for the day of the week. We don't want to send it on Saturday or Sunday. If you need help with formulas like that, that is all over the Quickbase community forum. That's where we get a lot of our information. That's where we get help. And of course, we have expert developers here who can help with that as well. But you can find formulas like this right on the community forum. There's a lot of great information there. So I definitely recommend going there. And that's kind of the summary of how we're getting that. Now we have this about 5 times. So let's hit exit again. So we have actually 4 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how we got that formula. So let's see now. We have delay number 2. So delay number 2, I believe this is just a date field. It is. It's a duration field. Apologies. And in this duration field, I can set a potential delay or actually a subtraction to when the next date should be found. So right now, based off of this sequence, it's saying we sent this out on the 18th. We're going to send the next one out on the 20th. So the 20th is not a weekend, it's a Friday. So we're sending it out then. But let's say I made this 3. I want it to be 3 days in the future. Now it's actually going to send it all the way to next Monday, right? Because we don't want it to be 3 days, but let's make it, I believe we did 2. It's also going to be next Monday. And the reason why that is, even if I did add another day, it's still going to be Monday. That's where that day of the week formula comes in. We're essentially saying do not send it if it's Saturday or Sunday. If that's not something that you guys care about, if you guys have working all 7 days of the week, then please feel free to remove that part of the formula. But we do it so that they only receive it Monday through Friday, typical work week for most people, but that is totally up to you. And again, if I take that delay out at all, it's going to go back to the 20th. Now, let's say I made this 15. It's going to jump all the way 15 days in the future, probably really 19 days, because let's account for 2 weekends, 4 days total. So that's how you're going to do that. You know, again, you could shoot whatever number you want in there. And that's how that delay works. And again, just so we can all see that formula one more time, that's what's going on there. Delay number 2 is what's being added. Let's just go back one time and let's check out the third one, just so you can see it's the exact same formula. Nothing is changed in there besides delay number 3 and sent date 2. Those are the only things that are being changed for each one of those days of the week. Let's just, for proof of concept, let's show the 4th. Now we have 3rd delay and delay 4, and the same thing for the 5th one, 4th sent date, delay 5. And if you want separate days, each one of these are their own. So if you want to say, hey, I don't want to send the 5th one until a week after that last one was sent, this is your trial sequence. This is your reminders sequence. Please feel free to make it custom to you, because that is, of course, what we want to show. So now that you understand how these email fields go and how these date fields go, you may be wondering, well, what's going on with the 2nd sent date, 3rd, 4th, 5th? That's going to be the next Courier sent date field. So I'm going to go and log into the Juice Cloud, and I'm going to show you guys the Courier configurations in the background and kind of how to make those. But just for a proof of concept, let's pretend that this did get sent on the 20th. Now you can see in yellow a bunch changed. So we have our 3rd email to be sent date is going to be on Monday, because that's 2 days in the future. We see that the trial message to be sent got changed to 3, because we did populate the 2nd email sent date. And the Courier configuration to use is the next Courier configuration in the sequence. Again, if I take that out, you see that it changes back. And even if I take this one out, it changes back another one. But I'm going to cancel that, and let's go and let's log in to the cloud. So for those of you who have been following along with us and have been with us for years, this is going to seem like repetitive stuff, but I like to repeat it every single time. If you're going to go into the Juice Cloud and you don't have it saved on your browser, you don't have to, of course, but if you want to get there, the easiest way is to go to juicetech.com and hit login. When you hit login, it's going to redirect you right to the cloud, just like any other service you've ever used. And you can just log in with your credentials. I'll log in with mine. And let's jump over to Juice Technologies. Now, you'll see all of our add-ons are active. Obviously, this is our internal use account. It's probably only going to show a couple blue for you guys. We want to see all blue. We'd love for you guys to use all of our add-ons. But of course, there's going to be some more gray for most of you. But let's go on and let's find the Courier tile. And let's click into the Courier tile. And then we're going to navigate to configurations. So we have all of these configurations to talk about. You can click on the configurations word here, or if you look on the left-hand side, there's navigation to Courier configurations. So I'll click there, and you'll see so many old configurations. We don't care about any of those right now. I'm going to click this jump arrow at the bottom. Many of you will not have more than 1 or 2 pages, but we have like 14 exactly, actually. And you'll see that we have some of these trial quotes right here. And I'm going to go back just one, and we'll go to the first workflow Wednesday. So I'm going to show you one, which is triggered, which is our very first one. And I'm going to show you one, which is scheduled, which is our second one. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hit this green pencil, which is going to edit for me. And I'm going to let this load up. And now I'm just going to kind of go through, again, we have these videos all over the internet at this point, but I'm just going to go over the quick 101 of what's going on here. For Courier, you have this configuration tab. This is your first tab where you're deciding where this is going to be sent from. So the name of it is the very first email, Workflow Wednesday Trial 1. Office Hours Trial Experience is our description. We put a tag for office hours. That's totally optional, totally up to you guys. But the processing mode is what's important here. So for the very first one, we're making it trigger because we want it to be sent out based off of an action or a change in Quickbase. And that change was decided by, like I mentioned just before, this email notification. So this is that action that we're sending. So this is what our trigger really is. And let me just go back to where I was. So we have our processing mode trigger. Status is enabled. Obviously, if you want to be using something, you want to enable it. But if you're doing it, for the very first time, test mode is probably recommended. Don't forget to change it to enabled. For the connection. Now, a data connection is really important. I've gone over this several times, like I've said, but this is essentially deciding what user token through Quickbase you want to be using. You can make that up here in the top left. I'm not going to go into that right now. Super easy. Just plug your user token in and you're good. You're off to the races. So I'm using my connection. The application I chose based off of my connection is Workflow Wednesday. You can see the other applications that I have access to, but we're using the Workflow Wednesday app. And then again, the table that we're sending this from, as you guys just saw, is quotes. So we're choosing the quotes table. This is a quick button that's going to bring you to that table, nice and easy. We make it really easy for you guys. Then I'm going to go to the email options. Now for us, we're using our mail server. So we're sending it out from my mail server. So it's coming from me. For those of you who want to send it out via your own mail server, you'll have to do your own mail server settings. You can put that in all through here. We have a whole separate video going over mail server settings only. So please, excuse me, check that out. Just as a note, mail servers are continuously evolving always, and security is continuously changing for those. So if you have any questions, please reach out. We're happy to help, but typically an SMTP connection is required. We do have a secondary option for you guys as well, where we make a mail server for you using our @Quickbase email domain. If that's something you're interested in or you would like help with, please, again, reach out to myself or support@JuiceTech and just make the subject mail server help, and we'd be happy to help. On the right here, we have our email field. That's really our two fields. So like I said before, we really only have one field to worry about, our email field. So there's my email. And then we're updating that first sent date. So this update field is really saying, okay, we're now updating a specific field. And Justin, thank you for throwing that in the chat. I knew that was out there. So we're updating that first email sent date. There it is right there, first email sent date. And then, you have the option to BCC or add a reply to. Like I said, we're not really going through everything for Courier right now. This is mainly to help you guys get this trial sequence, but you can BCC people, BCC from a field. You can reply to from a specific email address or a field. Maybe you have a sales rep that you want them to reply to. So if the sales rep is on the actual record, you can put that in. And then copy. You can copy as many people as you want. You might be able to see that help text there, or if you separate it by a semicolon, you can copy multiple people. And then you could also copy from a field, which if you have that separated by a semicolon in Quickbase, maybe it's a formula text field, that will also work as well. Now, the email message itself, we're, again, not really going to worry about it, but you can do a lot with this. You can make this completely custom and of your own. We really recommend you guys come in here and really give this a lot of pizzazz, for lack of a better word. But you can take fields from Quickbase. As you all know, Courier is super powerful and can do anything you really need in terms of the message. I recommend adding your own signature, maybe a dynamic signature. Super cool. Lots you can do with that. But again, that's not what today is about. And then, as always, the highlight here is to be able to include that EFP document, which is really my quote document. That's what it's named as in Quickbase. If I name that quote document, that's what will be there. That's just the name of the field. Lastly, if you wanted to test, you could, of course, always test. That's best to do before you start sending this out for real, so you have an idea of what people are actually going to see. And then on the Finish tab, you have the ability to add error emails, which if for some reason Courier doesn't process, that individual will be notified that there was an error. And of course, the ability to add a local activity log, which will keep a kind of a log in Quickbase of every email ever sent, who it was sent to, what time it was sent, and kind of the content of the email as well can all be included. So I always recommend doing this for especially new clients. And the one thing that kind of gets shoved to the side a little bit is this view email notification settings. This is only yellow when it's triggered. And like I said, there was many places before where you can find exactly what you need for the email notification settings. This is one of them. So if you hit view settings here, it's going to give you exactly what you need. So don't underestimate that yellow button. Really recommend pressing it. It literally gives you a step-by-step instruction for every single field that you need to fill out in that email notification. Makes your life super easy. Don't make things more difficult than they need to be. I always recommend just following the steps laid out for you, and you will have success, I promise. All right, so again, everything you need right here for you. I'm going to close that out. So now you see the configuration, and this is the triggered configuration. So now you may be asking, okay, that's great. We had that one triggered configuration, but how is the next one going to be sent? If it's not going to be triggered, then how is it going to be sent? And that is a great question. What you really have to have is a report. And let me now show you what's going on this second scheduled. So we have this second scheduled email, and I'm going to open this up again. And what we have for you is we have a scheduled processing mode. The processing frequency is daily, and the scheduled time I made is 2 p.m. for office hours. We're always, 2 p.m. here, 2 p.m. Eastern. And what essentially this is saying is look at this report. So if you look here on the right, when you choose trigger, that report goes away. But if you choose on demand or scheduled, it gives you the option to identify what report do you want to send this out from. So we're choosing trial quote second email via Courier report. I believe I was opening that up here. So there it is there. Another nifty button here, take you right to the report, make your life a heck of a lot easier. And you can see that we have one quote where the second email to be sent is today. The status is trial quote. And the second email sent date is blank. And I just put this as an example because I wanted to show this. But essentially, that's what we're bringing in. And now, one thing that I want to note is this won't send. And I'll tell you why. And this is a mistake that I've made, and I think I made here again a million times. So I always try to point it out. We have to add record ID. And record ID is super important for really everything we do. But when you add record ID, this allows our courier to kind of understand what record are we sending this from. It needs to be part of our C list. Record ID is really part of every single C list column list for all of our add-ons. So I really always recommend that. So when you have the record ID in there, it's going to be able to pull that in. So now we have processing mode daily, scheduled 2 p.m. And again, I can go through each one of these options. I could discard changes. We didn't make any. Everything else here is going to be exactly the same, except for, most importantly, the update field. Please do not forget to make the update field change, because that is going to be what is actually going to kind of make the sequence move. It's kind of like how the wheel spins. So if we go back to here, here's that second email sent date. So now, if I made the second email sent date, let's say today, then our third email sent date is going to be set for the 20th. And again, I'm hard coding that in. That's not how it would typically work. I just wanted to kind of show it. And you can see that things changed. So now the next trial courier to use is 5141. And again, if I went even further, if I did another one, now it's 5142. Now it's 5143. The fifth one's actually not going to go off. I think there might be a sixth one, but you see it's 0. So if you wanted to add additional to it, you can actually see that we have it in the trial message to be sent. So we did account for a sixth one here, but we didn't in our current email. So I don't really feel like buzzing around too much. But if you wanted to add another one, I'm just going to copy this and make my life easier. I'm just going to paste another one in. We're going to say instead of 5, we're going to say this is 6. And let's just, to show you the proof of concept, let's make that 10,000. Hit save. Now, if you filled all these out again and get to the 5th, let's just say that's today. Now you have 10,000 there. So that's how that formula works. You can have as many emails as you want in this sequence. You do need to have a courier configuration for each one of those, so please be mindful of that. But I just wanted to show kind of how that works. So again, close that out, goes back to 5140. All right, so we're about at the half-hour mark. I've been told that I yap and nobody gets to get any questions in. So I'm going to pause for a second. There's a bunch of you guys here. I know I've been blasting you guys with information. Does anyone have any questions so far before I continue further at all? I'm going to take silence as a good thing, but if you guys want to put a message in the chat, a little bit more introverted, please feel free to. And I'm also going to call upon Shally quick. Shally, is there anything that I may have missed so far?
No, I think you're doing a good job.
Oh,
Everything's covered.
All right. So with that said, let's go and let's make sure that we have this all straight. So now people might be asking themselves kind of, okay, I'm following along and I see how we got this. Let's go back and let's open this up. I see how it has this report. Now let's go to the third report for a second. Some of you might be wondering, why is this blank? Well, that's because the third email to be sent date is not today. And you may also be confused why we had the processing frequency, and it actually is for all of these. So let me just show you the third one. The processing frequency is always daily. Now, the reason why we do that is because you never know when that next sequence is, when that next report is. So when you have it as the third email to be sent date is today, it allows that Courier configuration to find the scheduled report only on the days that it needs to be sent. So let me just quickly change it so that we can see the third email sent date is today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this delay to kind of hard code it and pretty much show how this is going to work. So if I do -2, and yes, you can have minus on there, and that will expedite your situation. Let's change that to today. And let's -2 again. Now you have it back at the 18th. So the third email to be sent date is today, October 18th. So let's hit save. And for those of you watching in the future, yes, it's October 18th, 2023. And let's check it out. Now let's go back to this report and let's hit refresh. Here's our record. And again, that's what we want to see. We want to see that there's a record in there to be sent. And again, I promise you all, if you don't put record ID in, it's not going to work. Another extremely common question I answer very frequently. I've made that mistake for years and years. So please always make sure to have record ID in any of your on-demand or scheduled reports. It will make your life so much easier, and Manal won't yell at you like she yells at me. Sorry, Manal. So now you have record ID in there. This email is going to be sent out today at 2 p.m. Obviously, a scheduled configuration is a little bit more difficult to show. So, maybe you want it to be at 8 a.m., maybe you want it to be at 10 a.m., noon, whatever time you want, you can put that in there as a scheduled time. But I do really recommend that you pick scheduled so that it can go off basically in a sequence. If you've ever started the trial for one of our add-ons, kind of word to the wise here, this is exactly what we use. And that's why we thought of this office hours. So if you've ever gotten an email from me at 11 a.m. and it looks a little bit like this, that's because it is. So, all these, tips and tricks are things that we've set up for customers or things that we've set up for ourselves. So we highly utilize our own tools, and we really recommend that you guys give it a shot to utilize it yourself as well. And again, this is a super simple, configuration. All this is essentially saying is it's an invitation to this meeting. It's saying, hey, come join office hours and learn more about what you can do with the add-on that you have and that you've started the trial for. And you can view previous sessions here. And then again, here's the Calendly link to book a call with us to kind of have a one-on-one session to discuss really how you can get these accomplished. So I believe I can pull up my summary now and kind of go through each and everything to make sure that we're all on the same page here. I believe that is really it, though. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. So let's check it out. Let's see if I got everything right in my summary. So let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. It looks a little small. Let's see. Too big. Wow, that is big. All right. So let's see if I can read my own. You should have the following created for success after this call. So 9 date time fields, that is true. Let's go back. So you have 9 date time fields, but you're actually going to have 4 date fields. And is this also formula date? No, it's not. So 5 date fields and 4 formula date fields. So you want to make sure you have that, and maybe I should note that. So let me go back to where we were. Let me go back and put a note for formula date fields. Oh man, spelling. Then you're going to have 5 separate Courier configurations, 1 triggered, 4 scheduled. I believe I did show that. I think we got that now. 4 reports for your scheduled configurations. Now, again, you could have as many of these as you want. Same with configurations for Courier. It's totally up to you. This example, we're just showing a sequence of five separate emails to be sent. But you can see we have second, third, fourth, and fifth emails to be sent. As a reminder, you do have your first one is triggered, so you don't need a report for that. So you have the 5 separate configurations, 4 reports, 1 email notification for the triggered. I went pretty heavy on that email notification. You should know how to do that. 2 formula fields, 1 formula numeric for the trial message to be sent, and 1 formula text for the trial Courier config to use. That was the very first things we started talking about. I will just quickly show this again. Here's that trial Courier to use, very important. And let's just go back here. And let's open up trial message to be sent. That's this field as well. Again, you can copy these formulas word for word. They should work for you. This first condition might be one of the only things you want to change. Status is super generic, so we just wanted to use that. But whatever field makes sense for you guys, maybe it's a payment schedule, maybe it's an invoice amount, whatever it might be, to kick this off, you can have that field is equal to or contains whatever you like. Let's go back and let's see. So we have those 2 fields. One thing I did not put in here, and I will add another thing for it. And we'll just do that. I believe I need 5. Let's double check before we need, yes, 5 or delay fields. So we have delay 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 4 delay fields, and those are just duration fields. So let's go back. 4 delay fields. And I believe that is everything you need. And I know this seems like a lot, but for those of you who stuck with me this whole time, if you're watching this video in the future, you can kind of go back and forth. You should have all of that in its own section on your form. I'm using old forms. New forms will be fine. You can have all that in your sequence message here. You can have that hidden, so nobody even needs to see it. You don't need your salespeople to see it. It doesn't need to be something that's going to clutter up your form. It could all work in the background and should be seamless. The other thing too is you could have this all triggered based off of clicking create quote or clicking create PO or WO or whatever form you guys might be sending. There's endless possibilities with exact forms. Plus to create documents and then have it just kick off this whole sequence. And then again, maybe you have a conversation with someone. The reason why you use delay, hey, Matt, product looks really great. I'm going on vacation for the next week. Reach out for me then. You put a delay then and say, hey, you know what? I know that John Doe is not going to be back for a week. I'm just going to put that at 7. And now I know, okay, the next one's going to be sent on the 27th. It could be so far out of my mind at that point, but I know an email is still going to be sent to them. And I'm going to ensure that I give the customer as good of service as possible. And I believe that's really it. So we have about 18 minutes left till the top of the hour. Again, I'm just going to open it up for questions. And if nobody has any questions, okay, direct. Don, you could say it to everyone. So after the second email, the customer replies via email they are ready to convert from trial to purchase. How do we stop it from automatically sending? That is a great point. So in our use case, this status field, like I mentioned before, has many statuses. One of those statuses would be 1. So if I edit this field, and instead of just having trial quote, I also have 1. Now let's change this status to 1. You see that it turns to 0? Everything stops. Once you change that status field, and that could be any field you want, but once you change that status field to something else, everything is halted. No other emails are ever sent because the status is not 1, and that shuts these off. That shuts the whole process down. Great question. I'm glad you mentioned that because I did not talk about that. And I'll be honest with you guys, there's some times where you may have gotten an email from me after because I didn't update the status or I made a mistake there. So it's always good to kind of have your own checks and balances. Maybe some pipelines that might kick off and change the status field based off of an action. All things that you can consider to add on to this. You can make this as robust as you want. But again, Don, great question. Thank you for asking. So yes, I did not include anything to shut it off. So won or maybe lost. It could be lost. It could be any other status besides trial quote would make that shut off. So yeah, great question. Thank you. Okay. I'm concerned about sales reps that do not follow process. Thoughts on changing it because of an inbound email? Don, that is definitely a possibility. So just for you folks, Don's messaging me. Uh, I'm concerned about sales reps that do not follow a process. Thoughts on changing because of an inbound email? So unfortunately, Courier is only for outbound. So if you would like to do inbound, we have something called Email Parser. Email Parser is a great tool that can be used to inherit the responses right into Quickbase, and you can actually have an email chain going back and forth. We've built support ticketing apps very similar to something like Jira before for clients. But that would be one way. When you have an email response, you can have a delay maybe kicked in. You can have the status changed based off of that response, and you can have that whole email chain here. You can also, something that we've done, like I said, similar to Jira, is you could have these automatic responses, and you could also have the ability to make a custom response. So maybe you want to make a field here at the bottom that is maybe text multi-line, and you can write out a whole custom message because you want to answer something a little bit more specific. Now what you can do is you can have a condition here that's going to say, okay, also if custom email is not blank, use custom email and have a different configuration. That separate configuration would then kick off, and it will have something that'll say, in the Courier message in here, you would take all this out and it would be something like, custom message or whatever you want to name that field. And then it's going to bring in all that text just for this, and it's going to fill out the whole email. So that's one way we've done it in the past. Pretty cool. I like doing that. We did that for another add-on, Text My QB, quite often, because sometimes people want a canned response where it's like, the same thing to every client, or maybe they want something custom. So that's often done for Text My QB, can absolutely be done here as well. And Don, I agree with you. That would be a good future office hours. That would be a great part 2 to what we have right now, where you can then add the inbound step. And I think that would be helpful for clients to see how you can really make this a whole full circle solution without really any hands-on or as much hands-on work needed. For those who might not be dealing with hundreds of customers daily, managing this is not as difficult. But if you are dealing with, maybe let's say 50 to 100 customers a day, it could be a little bit more difficult to juggle all this without the help of an inbound tool. So I definitely really like that recommendation, and we will note that as a part 2 of making this Courier video, because that will really solidify the whole loop of the conversation. So great suggestion there. This custom message field, though, I really recommend that, everyone. It's a great way to be able to kind of send an email out from Quickbase. If you have even if it's a formula-rich text, you can have a whole email written out in here that's going to be dynamic for each client, and you really can start having these full conversations right within Quickbase if you either use Text My QB, which has inbound and outbound, or if you use Courier plus Email Parser. You can really do a lot of really cool stuff with that. Some of our clients heavily rely on those to really manage their whole intake of whether it's new clients, existing clients, quotes, conversations that are, to clients inbound and outbound really can be very robust.